This was a request that I had gotten a couple months ago, and I purchased the book Christmas Eve on Sesame Street, created by Jon Stone, illustrated by Joe Mathieu. And it is the correct season to read this book now. It was the afternoon of Christmas Eve, and some friends from Sesame Street were having a skating party.
"Let's play Snap the Whip,"
said Cookie Monster.
"Ah, a wonderful, wonderful one time around," said Count.
Two times around. Count grabbed Ernie's arm.
"Three times around,"
The Count continued. Ernie took Bert's arm and spun him around.
"Four times around, five times around."
The Count was delighted, but Bert grabbed desperately at a trash can that just happened to be skating by. From inside the can, a grouchy voice grumbled,
"Hey, take your hands off the hardware." "Six times around,"
yelled the Count.
"Take it easy,"
yelled the trash can.
"Stop,"
yelled Bert. But now they were going too fast to stop. Around and around and around, faster and faster, Bert tried with all his might to hold on. But the can went flying through the air, down a flight of stairs, through a wall, down some more stairs, through another wall, and out a door. It finally landed with a crash on the sidewalk outside. "Oh, Oscar, are you all right?" Big Bird set the trash can upright. Oscar poked his head out and shook his green fur.
"Oh, all right. Let's go back and do it again."
Then he mumbled,
"I've been thrown out of better places than that."
"Oh, well, I'm so glad you're all right, Oscar," said Big Bird. "I want everybody to be happy on Christmas Eve. It's a big night tonight. Santa's reindeer will be landing on the roof, and then he'll take his big bag of toys and slide right down the chimney." Oscar couldn't stand it.
"Just hold it right there, Bird Brain. Do you know how big the inside of a chimney is?"
Big Bird and his friend Patty didn't.
"Oh, about this big. That's how big."
Oscar held his grubby paws about 6 inches apart. His voice is hard to do.
"So how's a guy like Santa Claus, who's built like a dump truck, how's he gonna get down all those skinny chimneys, huh?"
Big Bird had to think about that. Well, he holds his breath like this. Big Bird sucked in his breath to make himself thinner.
"Oh, that's like trying to get a basketball into a ginger ale bottle,"
snorted Oscar. Big Bird tried again. "Well, he could come down the fire escape in the window."
"Window's locked,"
growled Oscar. "Through the door?" "Oh, through the door?" asked Patty.
"Door's locked,"
snapped Oscar. Big Bird's eyes filled with tears. "Well, I don't know how Santa gets in." And then Oscar spoke very softly, so Big Bird and Patty had to lean close to hear him.
"Well, I think you better find out, because if there isn't a way for him to get in, there are going to be a lot of empty stockings around town tomorrow morning." Merry Christmas.
Big Bird sighed and sat down on the curb. He was so upset that he didn't notice his friends were heading back to Sesame Street. They were singing and laughing, but Big Bird didn't even hear them. "Come on, Big Bird," said Patty. "It's time to go home." When Big Bird and Patty finally arrived back home on Sesame Street, Kermit the Frog was waiting for them. Kermit could see right away that something was wrong. And being a clever frog, he knew just how to find out what was wrong.
"Hey, what's wrong?"
he asked. Big Bird told him.
"Oh,
It's that Oscar. everything was fine until he started asking, how does Santa Claus get down those skinny chimneys when he's so fat? And we've got to find out, said Patty. Big Bird agreed, because if Santa can't get down the chimney, nobody will get any presents tonight. Now Kermit knew that was wrong, and he gave the problem some frog thought. Then he had a frog idea.
Well, who knows more about Santa Claus than anybody?
Big Bird and Patty guessed. Elves?
Mrs. Claus?
Macy's? But Kermit had another answer. Kids, that's who. So I'll just round up Grover and Harry, and we'll go ask some kids. And off he went to find Grover and Harry. In the basement apartment at 123 Sesame Street, Ernie threw his skates under the sofa. Bert was already undressed and ready for a hot bath.
Oh boy,
He sighed as he slowly lowered himself into the bubbles.
this feels
Peachy. But suddenly he had a terrible thought.
Oh, golly wonkers. It's Christmas Eve, and I still don't have an idea for Ernie's present. It's got to be something special. Oh, wait a minute. What's this in the tub?
He groped around and fished out a chubby little bathtub toy.
It's Ernie's rubber ducky. Say, that gives me a nifty idea. I know what to get Ernie. I'll get him a soap dish. He can put his rubber ducky in it so it won't keep falling into the water. I better get over to Mr. Hooper's store right away.
Meanwhile, in the living room, Ernie noticed something shiny on the rug. Because he was curious, he did something that he almost never did. He picked it up.
Why, it's a paperclip,
He said.
I bet it's from all my old buddy Bert paperclip collection.
He looked closer.
Oh, of course. It's Bert's 1957 Acme. Why, he'd feel just awful if he lost this. Hey, now I know what I'll get Bert for Christmas. I'll get him a cigar box so he can keep all his paperclip collections in it. That's what I'll get him. Then none of his paperclips will ever get lost again.
As soon as Bert left the bathroom, Ernie grabbed Rubber Ducky.
Bert,
called Ernie.
I'm going out for a while.
And he tossed the 1957 Acme paperclip over his shoulder, back onto the rug, and marched out the front door. Ernie hurried to Mr. Hooper's store.
Well, hello, Ernie, said Mr. Hooper. What brings you here?
Oh, hi there, Mr. Hooper, said Ernie. I'm just doing a little bit of last-minute Christmas shopping.
And then he stopped just the thing he was looking for. And then he spotted just the thing he was looking.
Say, that sure is a fine-looking cigar box on your shelf. I don't have any money, Mr. Hooper, but, suppose I gave you a rubber ducky here for that cigar box? Would you trade?
Ernie,
Exclaimed Mr. Hooper. He couldn't believe his ears.
are you sure? You love that rubber ducky more than anything.
Ernie swallowed hard and looked up at Mr. Hooper.
Oh, I've just got to have that cigar box.
Mr. Hooper stared long and hard at the sad little face, and then he slowly took the cigar box down from the shelf.
Well, if it's really that important, he said, here's the cigar box, Ernie.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Hooper,
Said Ernie.
and here's a rubber ducky.
He thought for a moment,
Goodbye, Mr. Hooper.
and then he looked one last time at his chubby little yellow bathtub friend and said the hardest thing in the world for him to say.
Goodbye, rubber ducky.
As Ernie turned to leave, the door opened. It was Bert. Ernie quickly hid the cigar box behind his back.
Oh, I'll see you at home, Bert.
He said, and then before Bert could answer, Ernie ran out of Mr. Hooper's store, holding the cigar box so Bert couldn't see it.
Mr. Hooper,
Stammered Bert.
I am prepared to offer you the deal of a lifetime. Now, this is the finest paperclip collection in the free world. Just look. Oh, here's my chrome-plated jumbo gem. On this one, I bent into the shape of the letter W. Oh.
Oh, that's very impressive, Bert, said Mr. Hooper.
Bert agreed. Yes, and they're all so individual, Mr. Hooper. I'm prepared to trade you this terrific paperclip collection for just one small soap dish. What do you say, Mr. Hooper? Do you have a deal?
Mr. Hooper knew how Bert felt about his paperclip collection. It was very much the same way Ernie felt about his rubber ducky. But he could see that Bert's mind was made up. What can I say, Bert? You talked me into it. Here's a soap dish, and I'll put it in a nice box for you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Hooper. And then Bert paused for a moment. There's just one more thing, Mr. Hooper. Could I come by once in a while and look at my paper? His voice choked and his eyes filled with tears. He couldn't finish the question. Never mind, he said. Bert slowly turned his back on the paperclips and left the store. Mr. Hooper stared after his friend, and then he looked down at the rubber ducky and the paperclips on his counter. After a moment, he smiled, gathered them up and put them in boxes and closed his shop. He hurried down Sesame Street. He was thinking so hard he didn't even notice Bob until Bob spoke to him. "Oh, happy Hanukkah, Mr. Hooper." It was just like Bob to remember that Mr. Hooper celebrated the Jewish holiday at this time of year.
"Oh, thank you, Bob," he said, "and a Merry Christmas to you."
As Mr. Hooper passed the trash cans in front of 123 Sesame Street, he heard a gravelly, grouchy voice.
Hanukkah, Christmas, presents, songs, happy kids. It's all a lot of baloney, if you ask me.
Mr. Hooper stopped and thoughtfully touched the ratty grouch stocking that was hanging from Oscar's can.
"If it's all a lot of baloney, Oscar," he asked, "then why do you have this stocking hung here on Christmas Eve?"
Oscar was trapped, but he managed to think fast.
Oh, if you must know, Mr. Nosy Parker, I was just drying my laundry.
And Oscar slammed back into his can so Mr. Hooper couldn't see how embarrassed he was. After Ernie had left Mr. Hooper's store, he went right home and wrapped Bert's present. And just in time, too, as he was taping the last corner, Bert walked in the door. "Oh, I'm glad you're home, Bert, old buddy," said Ernie. "I can't stand it any longer. Let's open our presents right now." "Oh, okay, Ernie," said Bert. "Let's go." He handed Ernie the package he was carrying. "Merry Christmas, Ernie."
"Oh, Merry Christmas, Bert. You go first."
Bert studied the neatly wrapped present that Ernie held out to him. "Ernie, what a superb wrapping job. Now, if I can just slide my finger under the paper and there we go, get the tape. No, how about scissors? Well, maybe if I just..." Ernie couldn't stand waiting. "Oh, just open it, Bert." He howled and Bert tore off the paper. "Oh, hunky-dory, Ernie, a cigar box."
"Well, it's for your paperclip collection, Bert."
Suddenly, Bert's knees became weak and his face felt cold and clammy. For my paper clips?" Tears filled his big round eyes, but somehow he controlled himself. Yeah, well, why don't you open your present, Ernie?" And Ernie did.
"Oh, wait, Bert, it's a soap dish."
"That's right, Ernie," Bert said proudly. "I got it for your rubber ducky." As soon as Ernie heard it was for Rubber Ducky, his heart just broke. Now there would always be an empty soap dish in his tubby to remind him that Rubber Ducky was gone forever. Just then, there was a knock at the door. "Come in," Ernie said sadly. It was Mr. Hooper.
"Merry Christmas, boys,"
he said, and he handed a gift to each of them. Ernie and Bert tried to smile, and slowly they unwrapped the presents, not really caring what was inside, not really caring that
is until they saw what was inside. Bert reached into the wrapping and pulled out a handful of bright, shiny metal.
Mr. Hooper, he exclaimed, it's my paperclip collection. Oh, and here's my rubber ducky,
shouted Ernie, jumping up and down, but suddenly Bert had a terrible thought.
Ernie, we didn't get anything for Mr. Hooper.
Oh, you're wrong, Bert,
said Mr. Oh, you're wrong, Bert, said Mr. Hooper. I got the best Christmas present ever. My present was seeing that everyone got exactly what he wanted for Christmas. Well, I'm going to stop here because this is a very long book, and then we will do a part 2. So, there we go. Good night. I love you.